I started Single Daddy Daily right after my divorce, and I'm ashamed to say that I did it for all the wrong reasons. There was a lot of pain, and after my divorce, I felt like I wanted to share that with the world, to give a voice to all the anguish and sorrow I was feeling. I needed a catharsis, and I used Single Daddy Daily as my vehicle. I soon found out that this wasn't the approach I needed to take.
Our mission at Single Daddy Daily is to take the struggle out of single parenthood and create a community where people can find the tools to thrive as single parents. Strong, resilient, happy kids is always the goal as parents, a goal that can become more challenging when facing parenthood alone or in a blended family.
Divorce and single parenting is more and more common now than ever. The challenges that we face as single parents permeate all aspects of our life.
We want to be the #1 resource for single parents out there who are having a tough time navigating the waters of single parenthood. We cover everything from parenting strategies to dating after divorce, finding love after divorce, and creating a new blended family.
Divorce can rob us of those feelings of acceptance, and it took me a while after my divorce to learn to love and accept myself. To be honest, some days I still struggle with that. We all do. Single Daddy Daily is still my place of catharsis, but now it's from a place of love and not anger.
Hurt people hurt people. That's why the cycle of hate and hurt continue to live on unless we are the change as parents first that this world needs. We are here for you, and this is what this community is all about. Don't just survive, thrive. The Single Daddy Daily way.
We are a movement, we are a tide, and we are rising. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Single Daddy Daily podcast. I'm your host, Evan DeMarco. Drew Manning is off this week, so I have the fortune of interviewing one of the funniest guys on Instagram, Mike. Everybody, Mike, I just really want to let people know how you got started, because if they haven't followed you, they're going to after we have this podcast. But you're just a no BS kind of dad who calls it like it is. I think you get a lot of flack for it, but it's hilarious stuff. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got started being dad and buried.
Sure. My name's Mike. I live in Brooklyn. I have 2 kids. One is 9.5 and one is 4. My wife, who does her mom and buried thing, started about a year and a half ago, and she's starting to make a name for herself as well as kind of the little bit of the lighter side, the softer touch. But we share a similar sense of humor, so it's okay. So I've kind of written for a long time, whether you want to go back to like high school and college newspapers where I had like columns where I would just write like bitter, sarcastic stuff. And I did that kind of online, freelancing and stuff for a long time. And then when I found out I was going to be a dad, I decided that, I could write a blog. So I started a blog about being a dad. And what I was seeing is I had a bunch of friends who had already become dads. And what I was seeing was they were retreating from the rest of their lives, like losing their social lives, and also kind of their personalities were becoming subsumed by like the parenting collectives, what I used to call it. It just became so focused on being a parent that all the stuff that you were friends with them for kind of went away. And I was like, I don't want that to happen. So when I started my blog, it was kind of about maintaining my personality. And also there were tons of blogs out there, mostly by moms, but there had been some dad ones that were really glass half full to a fault, I think, where they just, they were just shining sunshine up everybody's butt about how great it was to be a parent and stuff. And I didn't even have a kid yet when I started it. I started in the summer, like July, and my kid was born in September. And I knew, having a kid wasn't all sunshine and roses, right? There's going to be a lot of bullshit with it. So I started writing from that perspective, trying to be honest about it. When I do exaggerate, I tend to exaggerate the negative stuff, because I find it's easier for me to make jokes that way. I've never been like a super earnest kind of guy who's going to like open up his heart about, what's so great about everything. Every once in a while I'll get serious, or a little bit more heartfelt, like on their birthdays or something like that. But I don't do that very often because it's more fun for me to just talk shit. So I started the blog, and then a couple of years after that, I got laid off, and suddenly I had a lot of free time, and I started to devote more to the blog, and that's when I discovered Twitter. This must have been like 2013. And for a while, I was just joking on Twitter, and I had Instagram whenever Instagram started, but all I was doing was taking like the same nothing photos everybody else was taking of like what they ran across when they were walking around town or what they were eating, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I never used it. And then, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I started seeing other people like making memes and converting their tweets into memes and just using Instagram for the same thing I use Twitter and my blog for. So I started to do that. And now I'm on Instagram. Out of the three big social media ones, I'm on Instagram, 75% to, 25% for Twitter and Facebook. And I barely even do my blog anymore just because after Facebook kind of switched up their algorithms and the traffic started to dry up in terms of sending people that you don't know to like an external link as a fake news and all that stuff, it just started, nobody was going there anymore. So now if I write something, it'll be like a longer piece on Instagram, a long caption or something like that. And every once in a while, I'll write something longer on Facebook or a blog post. But for the most part, I'm just on Instagram making jokes and talking crap about my kids.
I love it. And, guys, listeners, you got to go check it out. Dad and Buried on Instagram. It's one of those things, right? I think, as you said, Mike, so many people tend to take the seriousness of parenting way too far, and it's all sunshine and rainbows. And it's like, no, sometimes your kid shits on you, literally and figuratively. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's nasty. And you kind of bring a humor to that. That I think is really missing in the parenting space, because everybody wants to talk about like how they're perfect parents, and Instagram has given us this place where everybody puts out information that makes them seem how they want the world to view them, not how they really are. And parenting is exactly that. Parenting is messy. So
yeah, I mean, look, Instagram is very aspirational, right? Whether you're like a fashion influencer or whatever, like people look at it and they're like, oh, I want that life or whatever. And that's not what I do at all. I'm kind of warts and all. And again, like when I do exaggerate, it's not to be like, look, I'm better than you. It's more like I'm much worse. I don't pretend that I'm particularly good at being a parent or anything like that. And I certainly don't, dress anything up when I'm posting a photo or whatever. I try to be real. And I think that people appreciate that. And obviously I think they appreciate the jokes as well.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the Dad and Barry page right now, and it literally is, it's hilarious. You do such a fantastic job of making it real. So it sounds like, you were always kind of a smart ass.
Yep.
So, how do I guess the question is, you've kind of gotten a little bit of public blowback from the way that you perceive this, but how do you deal with that?
Well, people ask me that all the time, right? Because I'll share negative comments that I get. And sometimes like some of the posts I put on Instagram, some of the most popular ones are ones where I respond to a troll. And I don't even necessarily like to call them trolls, because troll implies that somebody doesn't have anything better to do and they're just talking shit. A lot of these people, I don't know that I want to say they're well-meaning, but they're not just coming to my page to start something. They come to my page and they don't necessarily know what it's about, and maybe they don't have a sense of humor. They don't have any context, and they'll say something, negative, or like, how can you say that about your kids or something like that? And I'm like, I'm joking. And anybody who's been to my page or looked at 5 of the other memes on my page gets that. And my kids, they don't read my blog, and they're not on social media yet, although my 9.5-year-old, that's coming around the corner. But I've always said, going as far back as when I just had a blog, that, by the time he can read and see this stuff, odds are he's going to have a similar sense of humor to me anyway, right? So, he lives in the house with me, and he's already sarcastic and a smartass, and it actually kind of sucks, and I understand how much it must have sucked for my parents. But when it comes to whether my kids know that I love them, or, how real this stuff is, I'm not worried about them like getting the wrong impression from a meme that I made. They'll get it. So when somebody gives me some crap for something like that, I usually just have fun with it. And people say, how do you deal with that? I'm like, look, if something really hurt my feelings, I probably wouldn't post it and then make a joke about it, right? So I know that as I get more and more, publicity, or more people see me, more and more people aren't going to get it or aren't going to like me, which is fine. My whole life, not everybody has liked me. I can be abrasive. I get it. But that doesn't bother me. I'm way too old to worry about that kind of stuff. I do if somebody comes into my page and starts attacking somebody else in the comments, that's kind of where I draw the line. Like if you start insulting someone who's a follower of mine or whatever, I'll block you or something like that. For the most part, if you're just talking shit about me, I can take it. And I sometimes I mine it for material, but I almost never block anybody unless they get offensive or kind of bigoted or something like that, or they attack somebody else.
And that's great. And I think, I followed some of the comments, and again, you get, for lack of a better word, trolls, or just people who don't get it. And
Right.
it's impossible to not get it, right? It's funny, but you're
You'd
taking,
think it was impossible to not get it, but there's a lot of people who don't get it.
yeah. And, in this day and age, everything offends everybody, right? You're
Yes.
just not going to get out scot-free. But I love how you do approach that. I love how you approach parenting. So talk a little bit about, in this context, how do you and your wife kind of deal with, with this? She seems to kind of have a similar sense of humor.
Yes.
But how do you guys go through your day looking at content that's coming out of like your daily lives, and then making that fodder for your blog post, for your Instagram?
Well, it's funny because for a long time, so she was a writer too, and we actually met. We wrote for the same kind of website that had kind of a behind the scenes community and would occasionally have gatherings and get-togethers. And we met at one of those. We had similar lifestyles, whatever. Long story short, she likes to tell that story. I'm over telling that story. You can do the romantic stuff. But for a long time, she just used Facebook the way everybody else did, like pictures of the kids, and Instagram the same way. And it wasn't until a year and a half ago or so, she decided to be mom and buried and kind of join me. And the good thing about that is that she now understands how much work it can be to, get material up there and do it consistently and respond to people and grow and grow and grow, because you have to be consistent both in what you're posting and in how often you're posting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And she realizes now that can be kind of a pain in the ass, and why sometimes I'm on the couch staring at my phone when she wishes I was talking to her. Now sometimes she's on the couch staring at her phone when I wish she was talking to me. So the shoe's on the other foot a little bit. When it comes to kind of curating our lives for entertainment, we don't run stuff by each other too often. She kind of knows what she's going to get with me, and I'm not too worried about what she's going to say. Once in a while, she'll be like, "Are you going to be offended by this if I post this?" Whether it's like making fun of me for being fat or some shit like that. I don't know. But no, like there's not a lot that offends me. Like she's going to get away with that. That's fine. And I think people really like the interplay. Like if I post something and tag her, and then she comes onto my page and talks some shit to me, and vice versa. One thing though is she has been irritated in that, so even before I was writing the parenting stuff, I've always had kind of my writing persona is like an elevated version of who I am. And I'm even more of a dick in writing than I am like in real life or whatever. And when we're one-on-one, I'm a little bit softer and I'm more of like a real person. And she says now, the more I'm in my dad and Barry persona, the more the lines blur. So that it's almost like I'm a little bit, my edges are a little bit too rough in the daily life. And I don't know if it's because as I've gotten older and more tired and have kids, I've just gotten more bitter and stressed out, which I think is certainly a part of it. But also like you inhabit the character so often, whether you're online or whatever, sometimes maybe you forget that when you're with your kids and your family, it's not all, time to make material or to crack a mean joke.
And that brings up an interesting point, right? And how do you do that? I think so many people who are in the public eye or have Instagram pages or try to give this persona, they almost end up becoming that persona. And we know that that's not real life. So how do you, as a father, as a husband, kind of take a step back from that and not be dad and buried, but just be dad and husband?
I don't know if I've figured that out yet. Look, the fact is, there was never that much of a gap at all anyway. I think one of the big differences online with my jokes and all that stuff, I make a point of not taking anything, especially parenting, too seriously, right? And especially social media about parenting. Like I'm serious about it, and I don't want to dismiss it. Like I'm proud of the following I've grown, and I want to keep growing it and doing what I can with it. The dream, I guess, is to one day make enough money off of Instagram that I don't need a 9-to-5 job. That's never going to happen. I do take it seriously without getting too overwhelmed by or being too precious about it or anything like that. And the thing I think that the biggest gap is probably a lot of my posts. I try to come off a little bit more laid back than I really am. Right. So I'll be like, oh, what the fuck? Who cares? Do this, do that. And then at home in real life, the shit my kids do or whatever, I'll get a lot more aggravated and stressed out about it than it might appear when I'm trying to be like, I don't give a shit kind of guy on Instagram. It's hard not to give a shit about your kids.
Totally.
and one of the ways I let off steam is by pretending I don't. The small stuff I try to not worry about like everybody else. But even that can aggravate me. And then the big stuff, I always say, you never know, like as a parent, you're not going to know what's working or not working for like 30 years. Like my parents still aren't sure about me, whether what they did, worked for me, whether I turned out okay. And I'm 43. You never know if what you're doing is really paying off long-term. Everybody is just kind of,
until you're
a crapshoot. Everybody's taking a shot.
Yeah, until you get the therapy bill or you're requested to post bail.
Exactly.
So, there's so much fun here. Like, how do you? Okay, so I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. So we talked a little bit before we started. Is that and feel free to not talk about this if that's the case. But it sounds like you guys have had some medical concerns at your house recently.
Yeah, well, that's not a new thing, right? So my wife actually, she has multiple sclerosis, right? So she's been dealing with that, which is not necessarily a disease people know a lot about, right? So one of the reasons, or one of the things she focuses on a little bit more in her page is shining a light on what she goes through and what multiple sclerosis is like. It leaves her a lot more tired and drained. It's not the kind of thing where if you saw her in person, she's not in a wheelchair, which some MS patients, that happens later in life, right? Like you might think she's totally fine without knowing what she's actually feeling. So she tries to use her page to spread awareness to that. And she's written a few things for like today.com and Prevention Magazine about what that's like and that kind of thing, which is important. And I'm proud of her for doing that and for speaking out about it. But before the whole coronavirus thing really took off, one of our concerns is she was at higher risk just because she has MS and because the medication she's on for it suppresses your immune system. So we were like, she catches everything, right? So like we have a kid who's in daycare and a kid who's in elementary school, and they just bring home every cold and every germ you could possibly get. So from October to April, she always has a cold. She's also dealing with allergies, all that stuff. So we were like on high alert. What's going to happen with this COVID thing? Is she going to get it? And before we could even finish worrying about it, she got it. And so for about 3.5 weeks, she was basically self-isolated in her bedroom, or in my bedroom, but I was on the couch by herself. And I was dealing with the kids, adjusting to the whole new remote classroom, teaching from home thing, which I am not cut out for on 100 different levels. Trying to do my 9-to-5 job, trying to do my dad and buried stuff. And again, like it's a very serious stuff and it's stressful, but being able to make jokes about the stress is one of the things that I do, and that makes me feel better. Thankfully, she came out of it a couple of weeks ago. We didn't get the worst case scenario thing. She's not 100%, but she's free to be out of her room, and we're interacting, and she can hug the kids, which she really missed for a long time, and everything's back to normal. I'm sleeping back in the bedroom. Back to normal as normal is these days, which still isn't anywhere near what we're used to. But yeah, she's starting to talk about that a little bit more. In the middle of it, it wasn't something I talked about too much, or her. She wasn't up for even posting very often when she didn't feel well. But now she's starting to. She's going to be, writing a couple of pieces about it to let people know what it was like, that kind of thing. But it was pretty harrowing. But again, like not too much is off limits for us, right? So, I'll make jokes about it. She'll make jokes about it, and I'm sure, as time goes on, hopefully it will get funnier once this thing goes away. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think we need to laugh about it. And you talked about trying to be a teacher. I was, I'm sure you saw Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
I've seen it, I think 600 or 700 times.
Yeah, no kidding.
With my kid. But there's that scene where he's trying to help his kid with homework, and he's like, "When did they change math? Math is math." And I'm looking at the way that teachers are trying to explain, elementary school math. I'm like, I don't get this. Like, how the hell does this work?
I don't know that they considered, like, I understand the rationale behind Common Core and how it's supposed to help you, like, think about stuff and make things a little bit easier. Like, as a method you can apply to all sorts of different math problems. I don't know that they consider, like, the way we learned, we just memorized stuff, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Not so much processes, just results.
Yeah.
And now, like, we're at a total loss in terms of trying to help our kids understand this stuff. Because when I do I can find the answer, but I can't show my work the way that you're supposed to. From the core. I have no idea how to do it.
It's you didn't show your work. I'm like, you didn't have to. It was 5 plus 5. Why don't it's 10?
Exactly. I didn't have to break it into tens or whatever. I just added it.
Yeah, like there's a little, like she's got this bracelet where you have to use beads to count. I'm like,
oh
it's 5 plus 5.
It's really complicated, and I'm not looking forward to like junior high math and that kind of stuff.
No,
I couldn't
no.
do that in junior high. I certainly not be able to do it now.
Yeah. Like I had, it's kind of funny. I went to a high school that was called a laboratory school because it was part of the college, and they would send their student teacher majors over to get teaching or classroom experience. So I had this, you had like a core group of teachers, but you had these new young student teachers coming through. And for whatever reason, the math student teachers were always girls, women.
Yeah.
And I swear I got through geometry just by flirting my way through that.
Yeah.
Because I still don't even know what a freaking triangle is at this point in my life.
I went to an all-boys high school, and some of the teachers were not priests, but like brothers who were like in the ministry one way or another, and the flirting did not work.
No, and you certainly hope it didn't. You know, like you don't want it to work.
Not in that case.
Oh, geez. So I'm sorry. You've got one 9-year-old, and how old's your other kid?
4.
4. So at a certain point, you have to recognize, obviously, that, you know, they're going to start seeing this stuff. I think you've brought it up.
Yep.
They've got similar senses of humor. Have you and your wife talked about how do you address the fact that this is more of a job, and you know that obviously you don't feel this way about them, but you know, do you feel like this is going to be a really serious conversation, or your kids going to be like, that's mom and dad, and that's where my college fund came from?
What
Hopefully.
college fun. Yeah. I tend to think they'll get it. I do think, you know, look, they're aware that it exists. I mean, at the very least, my 9.5-year-old is aware that I do this stuff. Again, he's not really on social media and stuff yet. Like, he'll go on YouTube and that kind of thing, but he's not on Instagram. He doesn't have a phone, but he's going to, I think, probably, you know, within 2 or 3 years at most.
Yeah.
And who knows if his friends or his peers are going to find out about any of this stuff that I do, right? I since I use a pseudonym, you know, and I use pseudonyms for them, for my kids, certainly online. But, you know,
It'll
you
happen.
can find out who I am pretty easily. Like, I don't hide my name. I have a job. There's been times where I've applied for jobs, and like, I went through an unemployment stretch, and I was like, I got to show how I've been filling my time, and I've been building this social media and stuff. So I started to put Dad and Buried on my resume. And I know for a fact that like I've probably lost job opportunities, or at least not gotten interviews because somebody has gone to my blog or Instagram and not liked that I made a joke about my kids, or I said the F word or whatever. But now I have a job where people know that I have this side thing and they get it. So we don't hide it there. I don't hide it at home. My kids know, like, I have a podcast now. My kid knows that on Mondays I go off and I record my podcast, which is really just 45 minutes of me just shitting on parenting. Because one of the things I like to say is, like, because people get nervous, and I'm like, look, I don't hate my kids, but I do hate parenting because it sucks. It's really stressful. It's a pain in the ass. And that's what I'll tell them too. Like, it's not an easy thing to do, you know, to be responsible for other kids or for little kids, and to raise people right and all that stuff when we're stressed out. My kid, I can tell you already, my 9-year-old is going to be as much of a smart ass as I am. And it's already becoming very problematic. I don't know how I'm going to handle it when he's 15. I do think there'll probably be a point where I'll have to say it once, like, I'm playing a character. This is not really how I feel about you. And then I got to hope that, you know, the history we have together and the way we are at home, they understand that I love them, even if I sometimes bitch about them.
Yeah.
And I can tell, you know, my son already bitches about me to my face. So I think he'll probably get it.
So he'll have a Son and Buried podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Who knows what? TikTok, probably.
Oh, God. Are you on TikTok?
I have a TikTok account where all I do is apply chapstick while staring into the camera.
Seriously?
True story.
Okay. Now, how many followers do you have for that?
100.
Okay. Because
there's not a big market for uncomfortable men
putting on
staring
chapstick
at you while applying chapstick.
You know what? You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I thought I would be, but I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah,
not enough perverts.
Yes, I'm sure after this podcast, you might have 200.
I am. That's the one thing. So I don't like to buy into this line of stuff. And I don't know. So how many kids do you have?
Just one.
And what is it, boy or girl?
Girl. She's 6 years old.
So I wanted, certainly after I had a son, I wanted a girl. And I've never been one of those guys who was like, how am I going to handle having a girl? It's so scary out there, whatever. Like, I feel like, you know, you raise your kids right. Yeah, there's maybe a little bit more danger The way I see it is the idea is that girls are victims and that men are perpetrators, but it depends on the person. But I kind of wanted to have a girl, but now that TikTok is out there, I don't know. Every time I scroll down TikTok, it's just girls dancing and lip syncing. My co-host for my podcast, his daughter is a ballet dancer, and there's like a whole ecosystem of like dancers and stuff on there. I don't think my son is going to be into that the same way, although there's a lot of like frat guys who do goofy stuff on TikTok too.
Yeah, and it's one of those social media platforms. I don't get it. It's there's a lot of things that I don't get, and I feel like the more that I say that, the more I'm aging myself. But
100%.
TikTok is, Instagram made sense, Facebook made sense, Twitter makes sense. TikTok is like it's just preconceived, and that's where I kind of lose it.
That's the same thing with me, right? Even on Instagram, like the video and like IGTV and that stuff is becoming more important. And when I do a video, it's never like I've storyboarded a concept out and I'm setting up some gag. I'm just talking to the camera. Maybe I have a rant that I have some idea of what I'm going to talk about in, but it's not scripted. It's not something I've laid out in advance because I'm not good at that, right? So like creating kind of video stuff, especially like the clever short video things that a lot of people do, whether it used to be on Vine or on TikTok now, that's just not my strength. I'm just not good at it. So I stay away from it. And I feel like I wonder if in like 5 years when everything is video, if I'm just going to be obsolete. Maybe.
It's possible, but this is where I keep focusing on reading with my daughter, right? It's like, and don't get me wrong, I fall victim to this, and I'd be kind of curious from your perspective. My daughter's definitely creeping up on screen time during the quarantine.
Oh my God.
I saw a meme the other day that said, I just finished Netflix. I'm like, and I'm like, I kind of feel that way with my daughter. Like I put the YouTube control on, like the number of minutes she can watch. And then it seems I turn around to work and she comes back and I have to reset it again.
Yeah.
So how are you dealing with that? Like the digital download of kids, trying to keep them entertained while you're trying to work.
So especially when my wife was basically out of commission and it was just me and my two kids, and one of them had classwork, at least for a little bit, but it's not like an 8-hour day, right? It's like a couple of hours, maybe a couple of projects that take a few days. And then my toddler, it's not like daycare has a curriculum, right? He wasn't doing anything. So he's just getting Paw Patrol and Puppy Dog Pals all day. And then if I have something to do and I don't want them crawling all over me, it's like I send my 9-year-old go play PlayStation. The other kid gets to watch Frozen 2, which for some reason he's obsessed with. I have been really, especially when
it's better than Frozen 1.
You think?
I think so.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. You know what? I mostly just put it on and leave the room.
I will tell you that
one I saw in the theater.
As a single parent, I caught myself at one point singing "Let It Go" in the shower, and I realized I'd seen it way too many times.
I saw the first Frozen a ton. I haven't seen the second one as much, but my toddler certainly has. But I've never been. So I wrote a meme once, or I wrote a tweet once, and a lot of the material I use is because I used to tweet so often. I don't so much anymore. But now one of the things people do is they take a screenshot of the tweet and use that as a meme, which is pretty. It's an easy lift for material. And I had one that I share every once in a while that was, I don't think my parents worried as much as we do now. When I would get up on Saturday mornings at like 6 a.m. and just watch 6 hours of cartoons, like they weren't like wringing their hands over it. Yeah. But these days we do, like we panic, whether it's because we know more about the effects or there's so many more screens in front of us and so many options. We get really nervous about the impact this stuff is having on our kids. And I don't think our parents worried as much. For better or worse, I don't know. Again, I don't necessarily know if I'm frying my kids' brains or not, but they have been getting a lot more screen time than normal during the past, 6 weeks or so for sure.
Mike, I think it's content too. Like my daughter, I got a call from my ex-wife a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "You let Piper watch it?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And like, she's talking about Pennywise the clown, and I'm thinking, I won't even watch that. I read that book when I was 10 and it traumatized me. I sure as hell don't want to watch the movies. But turns out she was watching a YouTube video where they were talking about it and showing pictures of the clown from
Oh my God.
So like, I think to a certain extent when you'd wake up Saturday morning and watch 6 hours of cartoons, it was the Flintstones and the Jetsons.
Yeah. And you knew what was going to be on. Yeah. You knew you weren't getting anything risque. You go on YouTube and a kid can hit a related video and suddenly he's down some rabbit hole of stuff. And if you're not watching, that's certainly a challenge. My kids haven't gotten too much into YouTube. Mostly what they watch is My oldest will watch like video game walkthroughs for like Zelda and also like
and how is
Minecraft
that
and
a
stuff.
thing now?
I don't understand how that's at all interesting.
How is
I've
that even
never
a
liked to watch
job?
someone else play video games.
Yeah, it's bad enough that that's a job where someone gets paid somehow to play video games and record it, but now we're watching someone else play video games?
And because we're watching it, or because our kids are watching it, those people are making a ton of money. It's
Yeah.
insane. Well, then the shit my toddler watches is unboxing videos. I think that Ryan's toy, whatever that Ryan kid is, where he just opens toys that he's gotten for free from some brand. And
Yeah.
my toddler just stared at that shit.
My daughter's the same way, and there's this one woman who does unboxing videos for slime, and she'll take 50 slimes and put them in a giant bowl, and it's a voice that, like, I look at, each video's got 5, 6, 7 million views. Like,
Unbelievable.
you're watching a woman put slime in a bowl. Like,
Yeah,
how is that a job?
I don't understand, but I hope my kids have those jobs because they seem pretty easy.
Don't go to law
I'm nothing
school.
if not a hypocrite, man. I'm nothing if not a hypocrite. Like, I'll say, I always tell people, one of the things I started my blog on was like, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to judge you for your shit. And then every once in a while, something happens. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to judge that. That was some shit.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Is crossing the line. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. It's such a different thing. The other thing I was thinking about too is, like, I'm sure you had like a Nintendo or a Sega, right?
Yeah,
Growing up?
Nintendo, yeah.
Yeah. So think about it that way. It's like the video games, the PlayStations, these interactive ones, it's designed to keep kids in front of that machine for hours and hours. Like Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, you could beat the game in 7 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
you could finish those, yeah.
now I'm bored. Let's go outside and play.
But the dream was, I remember when I was a kid, you always wanted that video game that, like, you could wander around or like pick up stuff. Like was it Double Dragon? Like you could occasionally pick up like a trash can or some shit, right? And that was the dream, like an immersive world you could wander around in, which just wasn't happening in the late 80s, early 90s.
No.
But now, like the Zelda game my kid had, Breath of the Wild, like you could go on missions or you can just like ride a horse and explore the whole land. You can just do whatever you want because everything is
It's totally immersive.
Interactive. It's crazy. Yeah, it's cool. And I don't have the I don't know, it's not that I don't have the attention span, but like I got a PlayStation for my kid. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play this every once in a while. And then I play like 10 minutes and I'm like, I got better things to do.
Yeah, shit to do.
Yeah, right. Or it's just like you think you've played for 10 minutes and it's been 2 hours and you're like, oh my God.
Time warp.
Time flies, yeah. Which my kid doesn't quite realize, right? Like I'll warn you have to give him warnings, 10-minute warning, 5-minute warning, or then when he's done, you'd be like, you've been playing for 3 hours. He's like, no, I haven't. Like, yeah, you have. You just don't realize it. You've been in Hyrule.
Yeah. That's actually one of my parenting problems. And I think that I'm really screwing my kid up in this sense because she'll ask me to do something. I'm like, give me 1 minute. And then it's like 6 hours later, I do it. Like, I am horrible at that.
I hear, and this is the absolute worst, but I hear my 9-year-old repeating stuff that I say to my 9-year-old to his little brother. Like, give me a minute. Right? The same shit that I say, or I'll hear my youngest kid will even come up to me or I'll hear him asking my wife for something and she'll say, ask your father. And he'll be like, no, he's just going to say no. Or he's just going to say, give me a minute or whatever. Like they pick up on your tactics pretty quickly. But yeah, very often I'll be working or doing something and I'll be like, they'll ask for a snack. I'm like, I need a second. And then 45 minutes goes by and they're like, what the fuck? Where's my snack?
Yeah. They have no idea how to tell time now.
No.
My daughter the other day, I'm like, hey, let's get going. I was taking her back to her mom's house. She's like, I need a minute. And I'm responding to an email. Like, oh, parenting fail.
Exactly.
Like, screwed that one up.
They hear everything, man.
They're sponges.
That's the challenge. Like you can try to model behavior, but they see it all, even when you're not your best, when you don't think they're paying attention, they absorb it all. And
I'm fully prepared to be the parent that gets pulled into the principal's office multiple times with, do you know what your kid said in school today? Like,
oh my God, yeah.
And the
my
challenge
wife
is
actually swears more around the kids than I do, which I don't think it's that big a deal, especially if they use it correctly. But you also don't want to be the parent of the kid who's 4 years old and is saying like fuck in the middle of preschool or whatever. You just don't want to have that conversation too often.
It was New Year's. I was down in San Diego with my daughter, and we went to a restaurant prior to like the New Year's festivities beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And we got there right as they were kind of closing and preparing for their New Year's party. So we walked across the street to grab a pizza instead. I was just going to grab the pizza, take it back to our little, house on the beach and sit there and have pizza. I was in the wrong parking lot. The 20 minutes that I was in the pizza place, my car gets towed. Towed, right? So we walk out and I'm looking at, I'm like, where's my car? And it's a rental car. And my daughter at 5 years old at this point says, oh shit. Just like, and it's at one of those moments, right? I'm looking at her like, I feel like I should say something like, you shouldn't say that, but I can't stop laughing because it's like exactly what I'm saying. Like, oh shit, like where's my car?
That's one of the problems too. Yeah. Like when my kid will be like disrespectful by talking back, but sometimes it's funny. And you're like, I can't teach him that being disrespectful is okay, but that was pretty good. Right?
Yeah. Do you ever do like walk out of the room biting your knuckle?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's kind of funny. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
So Mike, you got 147,000 followers on Instagram. You got a big Twitter following. You kind of been doing the Facebook thing. You're putting chapstick on a grown man on TikTok.
That's right.
And I'm
it's on
check
myself. I'm not. It's not like I recruit grown men and put it on them. It's just on my own lips.
Maybe that's why you only have 100 followers. If you go put it on other grown men, it might grow faster.
Yeah, I can have guest appearances.
There you go. I'm not going to sign up for that.
Please don't. You don't want to see it. Don't even go look at it. It's very weird.
You reverse psychology. Now I have to.
The problem with it is I made a joke about it on Twitter and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I was like, I made a joke on Twitter. I'm going to start a TikTok where all I do is apply chapstick. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep the joke going. And I went and did it. And now I can't ever do anything else on that channel or it ruins the entire joke. The whole joke is that all it is me putting on chapstick. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I can do like a stupid dance or a lip sync like everybody else does. And that will like grow my followers, but I can't screw up the integrity of the concept.
You've pigeonholed yourself.
Exactly.
The only variable now is the location in which you do it.
That's true. Well,
I meant geography, not on your body. Not on your body.
I put a mask on. Yeah, I know what you mean. I put a mask on during the Corona thing, and I put chapstick on the mask once.
Oh, that's cool.
But I think that was that might have been the last video I did. It's been a while. I need to get back on that. My fans are clamoring for more material.
Get a travel company to sponsor this and you just go all over the world applying chapstick.
It's a good idea. Once we can travel again.
Yeah. Which God knows when that's going to be.
Yeah, I know.
So Mike, what's next for you, right? Like, you got a full-time job. You're doing the Dad and Buried. You've got, everything, the podcast, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That was an interview style question.
Yeah, it was. It's a very legitimate question. Well, look, I wouldn't even say that a lot of my energy or effort goes into the podcast right now because, again, it's very much fly by the seat of my pants with my co-host where I just shoot the shit like this and we have a different parenting topic every week where basically we just bitch about it. And it relies a lot on comments I get or responses I get. Like I'll post on one of my Instagram stories. I'll be like, all right, this week the topic is this. Here's a question box. Tell me your least favorite parenting chore or, what kids shows your kids watch that you hate or whatever, and I'll read those comments and then we'll riff on them and talk about our own experiences. I'd love for that to get bigger and get more traction. It's hard to promote a podcast. I don't know how you do it. I struggle with it because I don't want to overload my Instagram feed with promoting my other shit. I like to keep it for what it's for. My big thing is I feel like I've always been kind of a writer at heart and I want to write a book. And I have kind of 2 ideas, one of which I wrote half of, and then I realized that it wasn't going to be enough for a book. And then I came up with a second idea, which I think is a really good idea, but that won't be enough for a book either. So I might combine those 2 ideas into one book.
There you go.
The problem with that is, I need the time, and it's not even necessarily the time, right? Because I have time. I work from home. I have a little bit more free time now than I would have if I were going out to restaurants or on dates, which I can't do, or taking my kids anywhere. So I have my full-time job. I'm a parent. My kids are at home all the time now. I do my Dad and Buried stuff. I do some freelance writing. It's hard and I write for all of those things. It's hard to also get up the energy or the motivation to go write my 5th project that I'm working on. And that's for something that if it were ever going to make me any money, that would be a long time down the road. Whereas my freelance work, I'll get money every week for that if I do it, right? So it's just hard to prioritize it. One of these times I've got to do it. Like I said earlier, I don't ever foresee this becoming, my main moneymaker. It would be great. if somebody wanted to, hire me to write a TV show about my life, that would be great. I'm not interested in reality TV at all. I don't watch it. I don't want to be on it. Of course, it depends on how much you pay me, because then everybody has their price.
Everybody has their price.
Exactly. But it's funny because it's easier for me to do this stuff that I'm passionate about and is fun than it is for me to get up for my 9-to-5 job, right? Which pays a lot more money and is pretty stable, knock on wood. And I enjoy and I love the people, and I really like having a 9-to-5 job. I love going to an office. It's just an escape from my kids, and I get to interact with adults. It's funny because just being on the subway, because I live in New York, right? So 45 minutes in, 45 minutes out, I can listen to a podcast, I can read a book, because God knows I'm not doing any of those things when I'm at home.
Yeah.
So I love to have that little bit of a break. But I don't ever see, I remember when I just started, and I would think somebody who had 50,000 followers was huge and they must be famous, right? And then you hit 50,000 followers and you're like, oh, I'm not famous. Yeah. Somebody will call me famous now. I have a fair amount of followers. Somebody call me famous now, and I'm like, no, my life hasn't changed. I've been recognized maybe 3 times ever. There are people out there with millions and millions of followers. The co-host you have sometimes, Heidi, right? She has 500,000 followers, right? I don't even know if that changes your life, because
it doesn't.
Because social media can be, it's not like you're an actor on a sitcom, right? It's not like you're in people's homes. It's not like you're getting paid a ton of money. We just do it for fun. It's just a fun release. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy doing it, but I don't know if it ever becomes my full-time job. Maybe it changes and I won't like it as much. That tends to happen.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder about porn stars, right? Do they really enjoy their work?
I can't imagine. I mean, they're really churning it out. They're churning out a lot of movies.
Yeah.
It's got to get old. It's got to get old.
And that soundtrack in the back of your head. I'm like, that's just
they don't play that on set though. They don't hear that.
I don't know. Is that post? Is there a lot of post-production work in porn?
Dude, yeah, I don't want to be the guy you turn to for your porn production advice. I got no insight into that.
I don't have any, I don't have any insight either. It just seemed like an appropriate, it's kind of like when your passion becomes your full-time job, is it still your passion?
No, it can't be. So I think if you're a porn star and all you're doing is that, then maybe your passion is not doing that.
Underwater basket weaving.
There you go. That's not a thing.
Needlepoint, I'm a porn star by day.
It's not knitting. What is that thing called? Crochet.
Crochet, yeah.
That's a thing.
I'm a porn star during the day and I make Afghans at night.
Afghans, yeah. I don't want to buy anything.
The blankets, not the people. I think those are Afghanis.
Yes.
Oh, geez. All right, Mike. What do we got here, time-wise? Oh, wow. We did go 45. Cool.
Wow.
This has been fun.
It has been fun.
Yeah. During the middle or in the midst of the zombie apocalypse, it's nice that, we can actually talk about things that are a little more lighthearted.
I got to say, I'm really jealous of just the sunshine and you're outside. So you live on the West Coast. I live on the East in Brooklyn, and it's the middle of April. It's the end of April.
End of April. Yeah.
I've lost all track of time and calendars. We've had a couple of days of spring, but not a lot. My wife tomorrow is supposed to be mid-50s and sunny, and she's like, we are getting out of the house and going to the park and doing whatever, just because she's so desperate to get outside. I gotta say, I don't mind it. If it's rainy and I have an excuse to just sit on my ass on a Sunday or whatever, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But I would really like it to be warmer. You can grill, drink outside a little bit. That's what I'm into, and it looks like you've got that going on all the time. I gotta move.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Although I tell you what, it's allergy season. It's high allergy season right now, so that's why I sound like I got Kleenex up my nose or something like that. It's but yeah, it's nice, and at this point we're just doing everything we can to kind of keep keep our daughter busy. So it's 2 days on, 2 days off. I'm swimming. She's in the pool from sun up to sundown so that she'll sleep. But yeah, it's it's a challenge going through all this, and at this point, who knows when the whole thing's going to end.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, I don't think life is ever going to be exactly as it was. Even when this is all clear, right? Things are going to change. We've realized now that, you can do remote classroom and you can work from home a lot more than maybe you thought you could. And I think a lot of that stuff is going to become kind of part of the norm.
More commonplace.
Yeah, exactly. Which is fine. In some ways, that's pretty good. I do hope I'm still able to commute to work and get the hell out of the house.
Yeah.
But we'll see if that still happens in 6 months or whenever.
I'm assuming you followed the news a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that as long as we follow the president's advice and inject Lysol into ourselves, that we should all be fine.
I think that that's probably the best idea I've ever heard. Hopefully, he'll try it first, and then
Yeah.
we can just find out.
Yeah. I think, it's like if you're going to come up with the idea, be the guinea
Yeah.
pig.
You see, today he came out and he said he was being sarcastic when he said that.
And that's fine. Like, if you're going to be sarcastic, don't be the leader of the free world and be sarcastic during a pandemic.
Also, don't pretend you were being sarcastic just because everybody shit on you for being an idiot.
Yeah. When the CEO of Lysol has to come on TV and say, don't inject our product into your body. Like, no one took it as sarcastic.
Like, there's a lot of things that he'll say that you'll be like, it's just common sense not to do that. That, like, not injecting Lysol is not, it's like, what's less than common sense? Like, you're born knowing you can't inject Lysol into your veins.
Yeah, but, there is a contingent of middle America who might not be, educated in the chemical arts or the chemical sciences, who might be thinking, okay, well, if the malaria drugs aren't working, maybe Lysol's the cure.
No, 100%. And there's the contingent, probably the Venn circle, the Venn diagram is a big overlap that will believe anything he says. So, they're going to, whether they think it's a smart move or not, they're going to be like, hey, if he said it, I'm going to do it, which is problematic. He said that hydroxychloroquine thing. And then today, scientists came out and said, yeah, we're doing some tests and the primary result is death. So we're ruling that out.
Yeah. It's, and the second primary result was like massive cardiovascular damage.
Exactly.
It's like, well, you're either going to die or you're going to die eventually because your heart's going to give out.
Exactly. But keep listening to the president. He knows what he's talking about. Or else he was being sarcastic and he was just joking around.
Because, at a time like this, we need our leaders to be, funny.
Exactly. That's
Which means you're running for president next.
Please, no. No, thank you.
Cool. Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. This was fantastic. And I'd love to have you back because I think, as we get more into this, just some humor and, kind of figuring out where you're at in your journey and just, hey, look, have a beer and have a bullshit conversation is.
I was just going to say, as long as I can have a beer, I'm fine at any time, man.
Awesome. All right, Mike. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Single Daddy Daily with your host, Evan DeMarco. We've had the awesome pleasure of having Mike on the show from Dad and Buried. We're going to put all of his information in the show notes. Highly recommend you follow him. It's great parenting. It's parenting at its best. It's obviously an opportunity to look at ourselves and realize that we can't take this shit too seriously. As I heard one time, don't take anything too seriously. You never get out alive.
Right.
And parenting is one of those things where we need to apply that a little bit more. A lot of fun, a lot of inspiration, and just a good time. So follow him. Until next week, again, Evan DeMarco, make sure to follow us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Leave this one a 5-star review if you think it's worthy of that. I think it's a 6-star. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.